Although I call this my lazy artist technique, but somehow it always gives unbelievably realistic results. Make sure you watch till the end, where I'll reveal a few tricks that can instantly level up your hair drawing skills. I built the outline with our simple grid method. There is no rocket science in outlining basic hair clusters, but if you still want the step-by-step process, you can check the link in description. Okay, so first of all, grab an extra paper and let's warm up with a few practice strokes. You have to use variable pressure with flicking motions, starting with a light touch, then pressing harder through the middle and then lifting off like this, to finish with a soft, tapered end. You'll instantly achieve a stroke which has a gentle start, a strong body and a fine, delicate tip, just like real strands of hair. Now we'll bring this hair to life in 3 simple steps: a strong 3D base, glowing highlights, and crisp individual strands. So first step is the 3D base, and I always create the 3D base of a drawing before final details, because this way you get a nice looking basic structure to work on afterwards. So let's take your 8B pencil and follow the flow of each hair cluster, adding gentle curved strokes that mimic the natural hair strands. On the left portion, place your strokes close together in a downward direction to achieve a denser, darker look. And as you move into the next cluster, place your pencil close to the scalp and begin with a soft touch. Remember, you have to start using the pencil flicking technique I have taught you in the start of the video to achieve strokes with tapered ends. Just like this. Make sure to mix shorter and longer strokes and always follow the natural curve of the cluster. This variation builds overlapping layers and instantly adds depth. And please take your time with this part, because I noticed that most beginners try to speed up the process and add random strokes which overlap too much, making their drawings look like a spaghetti on paper than hair. Enjoy this motion and remember, every stroke you add is bringing your drawing one step closer to looking alive. On the top portions, try easing up your pressure on the pencil and notice how the tone softens and the flow feels smoother. Just like this. And where the clusters overlap, press a little harder on your pencil and keep your strokes tighter. And notice how this simple change instantly separates the clumps and adds depth in between them. And again, always follow the curve of the head so your shading wraps naturally around the form. Keep layering these curved strokes across the entire upper portion of the head, and you'll see the 3D base coming together. Take your time, enjoy the process, and you will see how each single stroke brings the hair to life in the end. And by the way, the real-time version of this tutorial is available on my Patreon profile. Link is in the description. Now go back to those little flyaway hairs we added earlier and darken them a bit. See how they instantly gain more dimension and form. Now let's move to the side tuft, and in this section, you have to change your stroke direction and keep your strokes close together. And see how beautiful it has started to look. Keep checking back with your outline reference image from time to time, as it's your guide to staying on track. And here's a key detail. Whenever sections cross over each other, you have to press a little harder and layer your strokes. Try it now, and you'll see how the overlap instantly pops forward, making the strands feel full of life. Now it's time to add those delicate and fine hair details. And first of all, you have to sharpen the tip of your pencil, and for that you can rub it on a scraper or even sandpaper and you will get that ultra thin point. Place the tip of your B pencil right on the edge of the section and start a stroke with one smooth flick in the outward direction. You can try adding a few strokes in different directions and you'll instantly notice how that little bit of variation makes the texture feel more natural and alive. Also, I like to slightly darken the main hair cluster before adding too many loose strands in front so its shape feels solid. Just like this. Now it's time when you can add thin and sharp strokes following the cluster's flow. You can also try mixing softer flicks for brighter spots and darker flicks for shadowed areas. And many beginners make every stroke go the same way, which makes the hair look too stiff instead of flowy. So remember, a little randomness here and there is what brings life. Finally, layer in some extra graphite where you need more depth, and you will see how this contrast pushes some strands back and pulls others forward. And look how the whole section started to look fuller and dimensional. Okay, now it's time for the second step, which is adding highlights, and you see how this will instantly make these dull hair clusters truly come alive. Pick up your Mono Zero razor and focus on one cluster at a time, so the flow of the hair stays natural. Think of each cluster like a little stream of water that flows smoothly from the roots to the tips, following the same direction we mapped out earlier in the base strokes. You can place the tip of your eraser at the start of a strand and flick it forward in one smooth motion, just like this. Use the pressure technique we practiced before by beginning with a light touch and then pressing a little harder in the middle so the center shines, and finally easing off at the end so the tip fades away thin and soft, just like a real hair strand catching light. You will also see that the end becomes thin and soft like a real hair tip. In this way, every strand you'll erase has a glowing middle and needle-like ends, which makes it look more realistic and full of life. One very important thing is to keep the eraser clean, because using a dirty eraser is like trying to wipe your glasses with a dusty cloth. And instead of clear lines, you will get blurry smudges. So clean your eraser after every other stroke. Now add a few lighter strokes with very gentle pressure. Let some of them flow randomly, just like natural hair that never stays perfectly in place. Be careful not to cover too much of the dark areas with highlights, because natural hair always has both light and dark. If everything becomes too light, the hair will start looking flat and shiny, like a cheap plastic wig instead of rich and 3D. Also, avoid making every stroke go in the exact same way, because then it starts to look like soldiers marching in a parade. Real hair needs a little randomness to look realistic. You can clearly see that with the highlights in place, the hair is already starting to take shape, and now it's time for the next stage. Now let's jump on to the third step, which is fine-tuning the highlight, and you will see how instantly this makes the hair section truly stand out. Okay, so quickly grab your Sharpie pencil and start tracing right beside the lighter strokes. And look how the hair instantly turns sharper and more defined. Try your best to place the darker strokes right next to the highlights, so you can control their thickness and give them a polished, natural look. Many beginners make the mistake of using a blunt pencil at this stage, and the result is just like trying to sign your name with a fat marker. You lose all the control and the strokes turn thick and messy. Keep your pencil sharp instead, because that sharp tip gives you the precision to slip into tiny spaces and make every highlight look clean and realistic. Now in areas where you want a little more depth, especially at the bottom of the cluster, switch to a chisel tip 8B pencil. And this balance of depth and light is the real secret to lifelike hair. Many beginners skip this step, and that's when the hair starts looking flat or like one big block instead of realistic strands. Okay, now look at the difference. This is how sharp highlights and depth instantly change the look of hair drawing. Most artists jump too quickly to the final step and miss this step, and their hair starts to look stiff, almost like a cardboard cutout. That is why it helps to add a few small individual hairs along the edge, so the outline feels soft and natural. Use your B pencil and pick a few strands that you want sharper and more prominent, and then extend some of them so the hair has extra flow and movement. Most of you also hesitate when drawing free-flowing hairs, and that hesitation turns the line into a shaky scribble. The key is to draw each stroke in one confident motion so it stays smooth and natural. If you're not confident yet, practice these flicks on a scrap paper until your hand gets used to the motion, and then you can easily add them to your drawing without messing it up. Also, don't think that you have to get everything right in one go, as you can always go back and adjust the details where required to achieve realistic results. You can always make the texture look natural by mixing a few darker strokes with more pressure and some lighter ones with less pressure. This mixture of tones gives the hair a realistic look and brings the whole section to life, just like this. Now many beginners forget this and skip the brighter strands in front, and the result is that the cluster looks flat, almost like a printed sticker. But the moment you press a little harder at the base and flick upward, those front strands pop forward and push the softer ones back, and instantly you can feel the depth returning. If at any point the highlights start blending in too much, go back with your B pencil and trace right in between them. It is just like outlining a glow, and suddenly each strand stands out on its own. By the way, if you're a complete beginner and you keep throwing away your drawings because you feel like you just can't draw, it's not your fault. You just don't know the basics yet. And that's exactly why I made this full course, to help you go from shaky lines to realistic drawings step by step. It covers everything from basic lessons to advanced techniques, tips and tricks, all structured in a clear step-by-step format, so you don't have to guess your way through it. Thousands of students are already learning and growing through the course, and it's currently one of the top-rated drawing courses on Udemy. I put my course on sale for 5 days every month just for my YouTube family, and I allowed the first 50 students to join at the lowest price possible. Check the link in the description or comments to see if the sale is live right now, and get enrolled before it ends. What would you do when the highlights don't shine the way you want? This is where your eraser becomes your best friend, and I'll show you how. Sharpen the tip and flick it over the strand, and you will see the graphite lift instantly. Flyaway hairs are another important detail, but many people keep the pressure the same throughout, and that makes them look stiff like broom bristles. Instead, start the stroke with a soft pressure and then gradually increase the pressure as you move towards the center, and then again reduce the pressure so you get those delicate tapered tips. Okay, so do you want to know an easy trick for drawing hair without overworking every detail? I call it the lazy artist technique, and trust me, it works like magic. On the days when you do not feel like drawing every single strand perfectly, just take a blunt eraser and flick strokes roughly in the direction of the hair, just like the way I'm doing here. The darker base you added earlier will guide the highlights, and together they create the illusion of shine. And this works so well because it is not about making each strand perfect. It is about layering light strokes over dark ones in the right direction, which tricks the eye into seeing realistic shiny hair. It is like using a shortcut in sketching, and even though the strokes are not flawless, they work together to create the effect you want. This shortcut is especially helpful in the tuft, where the hairs are shorter. Once you are happy with the tuft, you can push the realism even further by adding darker strokes right beside the highlights. This instantly makes them look thinner and sharper, just like underlining a word in a notebook makes it pop out from the page. But remember, this only works if your pencil is sharp. Many beginners keep drawing with a blunt pencil at this stage, and instead of fine, clean lines, they end up smudging everything. It is like trying to cut paper with a butter knife, and it just does not work. When you feel your drawing is almost complete, take a step back and look at it from a little distance. This helps you spot if anything still needs a small adjustment or extra touch. It's these little tweaks that can take your drawing from good to truly great. If any cluster feels flat, add more graphite in the shadows because contrast is what gives hair its depth and life. And once the darks and lights are balanced, finish it off with a few tiny hairs using a B pencil along the upper edge if needed. They may look unnecessary, but they act like the final sparkle that makes your drawing feel alive and hyper-realistic. And that's it. We've successfully learned how to draw realistic hair. If you found this useful, hit like to support more free tutorials. Guess the singer's name in comments and let me know if you want this full tutorial. And if you're an absolute beginner and want to learn drawing from scratch, you can join my course here. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.